How do you create a successful business and a fulfilling life? In 2020, after leaving the corporate world once and for all, I founded my digital agency that replaced a six-figure income within just the first few months. Since then, I've coached thousands of entrepreneurs across the globe to do the same. Now I'm on a mission to teach others how an exceptional life is not only possible, but very achievable through entrepreneurship. Join me in this podcast as I interview industry experts to learn the ins and outs, the do's and don'ts of what it takes to become a great business owner, and share some of the lessons I've learned along the way as well. Thank you for joining me, and let's dive in. I want to talk about something today that is really the reason why you shouldn't be listening to this. In fact, it's the reason why you probably should take some time to take a step back and look at the type of information, the type of training, the courses, the places that you are consuming information, and look at it in comparison to how you are actually moving the needle forward. How are you actually progressing towards your goals and towards the things that you're wanting to achieve? And the reason, well, before I go into the topic with that, I'll say this. As entrepreneurs, we are extremely, extremely blessed to live in a world where there is an absolute abundance of education, information, technology, resources, right? In fact, I was sitting at a lunch just last week with a group of, 3 other entrepreneurial type individuals who have run multiple businesses throughout their lives. And we were talking about this, how in the world that we're living in now, you can start a business with really, you can do it creatively with no money down, no investment into it, right? Just literally using free tools and free resources that are available online. And we were talking about how it is so insane that the resources available give us the opportunities that really did not even exist even 10 20 years ago. So I digress. The reason that I'm saying this, and the reason that I started out saying you probably shouldn't be listening to this, is because one of the top reasons that individuals do not find success, or that they do not see success in their business, is because of something that there are a lot of different names for: shiny object syndrome, analysis paralysis, right? Overthinking, imposter syndrome, right? All of these different names. And really, the ultimate solution to all of those different things is taking action. There's a term that I feel has become more commonly used recently because of the abundance of information that is available to all of us. And that is the term called mental masturbation. Okay. And the definition of that is when you have an idea for something, you have something that you're excited about, or that you are, interested in. And so you learn a lot of information about it. You listen to podcasts, you listen to books about it, you listen to, online courses or trainings, you go on YouTube and look up a ton of videos for it. But instead of actually taking action, you spend your time making yourself feel good because you're learning about it, right? You're learning new things about this particular, whatever it is you're getting started with, but you don't take action. And I see this a lot. Honestly, even for myself, I have to take a step back and, take inventory kind of all right, is my ratio actually progressing my journey? Is my ratio of the information I'm learning and taking in, is it actually affecting my ability to take action? Is it bleeding into that time that I can actually take action on these things? And if it is, then I need to cut out, right? Like, I mean, man, to the point of sometimes I'll go a couple of weeks without listening to any new podcasts or any new books or any new training or anything like that, because I'm simply implementing, right? A good friend of mine, his name is Tyler Caldwell. He's an agency owner. He lives in, last time we spoke, I believe he's up in Calgary in Canada. And we were talking about this the other day. We had a little call together where we were talking about a couple of different things. And man, he's always been such an incredible example to me, because he preaches, like literally preaches, that he, to everybody that he coaches and everyone that he works with, that taking action is pretty much more important than absorbing the information, right? Because there comes a certain point where, like, you learn the basics, and it honestly, it doesn't take too much these days to learn the basics. In fact, I think Alex Hermosi shared something that said that it takes roughly 10 to 20 hours to learn the basic tactics of obviously for this I'm talking about business and entrepreneurship, but it takes 10 to 20 hours to learn the basics of that. Okay, you can spread that out over a couple of weeks, right? If you're really new, really fresh to the business model, maybe you take a month, right, to go over and learn some new things on that. But then at that point, continuing to put off taking action and launching, or putting yourself out there to start bringing on new clients, or doing the actual action pieces that directly affect your ability to bring in income or new clients, putting that off for whatever excuse or whatever reason you're giving yourself, putting that off and spending time on coaching sessions or listening to books or listening to audio or whatever, it probably makes you feel, like, okay, I'm doing something, I'm doing work towards this goal, so I'm still, doing something. But honestly, you're not. You're using it as an excuse. You're using it as an excuse that probably, you're probably telling yourself rationally, like, oh, I don't know enough, so I don't feel confident enough to, take the step forward. I need to learn more about this. It's probably not true. You have the information. You're just scared, right? And many of us have been there. The unknown is scary. It is, but the only way to have it become known is to take a step forward and start taking action, right? I feel like I went on a little bit of a tangent there, but with Tyler, he says, pretty much every time we used to do a lot of coaching sessions together, like as co-hosts on a weekly training session. And almost every single time that he would coach entrepreneurs, he would share that anytime that he would attend a seminar or a workshop or a training or anything like that, that before he did anything else at the end of it, he would take action on at least one thing that he learned from that training or workshop or seminar, right? That he would take action on that. And it was a non-negotiable, like it's a non-negotiable for him that he does not do anything else until he has taken action on that, right? I have spoken with or have worked with and coached a lot of entrepreneurs over the years, and I hear a lot of, versions of excuses of why the thing can't be done right now. Whether that is personal circumstances or, different life situations happening, lack of time, lack of ability to focus on the thing, excuses around, well, I just don't have the information yet, or I don't know what the steps would be for that, right? And like I said at the beginning, it's something that even myself, I've caught myself having similar thoughts like that throughout my own journey. And it's become something that when I find myself having those types of thoughts, I acknowledge it, but then make a very, very conscious effort to take action, right? And to almost use it as when I start to feel those feelings of maybe fear or imposter syndrome or insecurity or whatever it is, having that be more of a trigger in my mind to do the damn thing, right? Because the only way that we're able to grow is outside of our comfort zone. And you can only get outside of your comfort zone if you're doing the things that that intimidate you, that scare you. And instead of letting yourself use these, empty excuses and making yourself feel better about it by going and listening to new books or new audio or, new training on the thing, just get out of your damn way and go take action. Just go take action. I think one of the most important lessons that we can learn, and this isn't just related to entrepreneurship, but that we can learn in life in general, is that if we want to see progress, we have to learn to get comfortable with sucking at something new. If we want to learn or become an expert or become skilled or become, even mediocrely decent at something that's brand new to us, then we have to accept that we're going to suck at it. Most likely we're going to suck at it for a while as we're learning that. I've shared this before, but I feel that it applies to this topic as well. So I'm going to share it here. Psychologically, there's an explanation for how to become an expert of something. And this applies for any way that you want to apply it, whether it's personal, physical, professional, whether it's, a musical instrument or it's learning to have better conversations, right? Like you name it, this applies. If you want to strengthen your skill and you want to become better at something, if you want to become an expert at something, there's a psychological process that must be followed. And this is that process. And honestly, I learned this layout or this process as I was going through training for my NLP certification. So the neuro-linguistic programming. So this is something that psychologists use to help individuals, specifically, psychologists that do a lot with NLP, which is helping individuals to move past their personal barriers through, rewiring your mind. But this is something that is used, and it's a framework, that affects all of us, but it's something that is used to help individuals to, number one, have grace with ourselves and understanding that, we need to have clear expectations and realistic expectations as we are doing something new. But also, two, to give that big picture and maybe more awareness around what stage you're in of that journey to becoming, more skilled or more, advanced at that particular thing that you are working on. So here's the breakdown. Okay, here's the breakdown. And I'm going to apply it. So in my office here, I have my piano keyboard right across from me. So behind the camera here, I can see my camera. So I'll use that as an example because I feel like this applies really well to musical instruments. That's something that I can associate it to. So the first step of becoming a quote expert is that you are first going through subconscious incompetence. Okay, so in the application of learning a new instrument, Subconscious incompetence means that you are not even aware subconsciously of what it is that you need to know. Okay, so in that application with musical instrument, that would be similar to me not even knowing what a piano is, having no idea what the keys on the keyboard do, what their functions are, just knowing that it looks cool, right? That's subconscious incompetence. So that's the first step. Okay. The first step that you have to be aware of is that you are subconsciously incompetent of the thing. The second step is conscious incompetence. So consciously incompetent, meaning that I start to have some curiosity around playing the piano. And maybe I start to look at it a little bit more and look at sheet music, and I start to realize, wow, okay, so this is what I don't know anything about. I know, like, I can see the keys on the keyboard. I can tell that this is lower and this is higher when I play up here, but I don't know what the names of the keys are, right? And starting to be aware of that as you're growing in curiosity, being consciously aware of what you are incompetent at, okay? So through that phase, our curiosity and learning, that's where it makes sense to do some learning, right? Where it's okay to be like, all right, I got to lay the groundwork for the basics of this. That's where Alex Hormozy says, the 10 to 20 hours of learning on that topic so that you can apply the basics, that you can apply those tactical pieces. Okay, so that's the second phase. The third phase is one that takes, in most cases, the longest. But the third phase is conscious competence. Okay, conscious competence. So this is the phase where the practice comes into play. When you start learning and you start growing in your skills and you start growing in your knowledge of what that thing is. And this can take a lot of time, right? This can take a lot of very intentional work. This is really where you are building the habits. Okay, this is the phase where you are building the habits of what it is that you are wanting to become more skillful at. And this part of the phase, you have 1000% permission to make a lot of mistakes and continue, understanding and growing and developing in your knowledge and your skill set of that thing. So in application to playing the piano, this would be, in high school, I used to come home from school in high school and I love music. Like, that's, in fact, when I was in high school, I thought that I always wanted to be a music therapist. That's what I was really interested in. But in high school, I would come home from school and I would literally just sit at the piano and practice the piano for like 3 to 4 hours every single day. I was also teaching piano. That was really, like, technically my first quote job, right? I taught piano lessons and guitar lessons to a handful of students. So I was playing the piano and intentionally practicing things that were very difficult so that I could improve that skill. Okay. So that's the third phase. And it's the one that takes a lot of intentional hard work. Now, the fourth phase is subconscious competence. Subconscious competence. And this is the phase where it becomes muscle memory. This is where it becomes muscle memory. And psychologically, this is what is considered level expert, right? When it becomes muscle memory and those neural pathways that you have been intentionally building this habit around for hours and hours and hours, or, repetition over and over and over again, those neural pathways become just seamless, right? is muscle memory. And it's beautiful. I mean, and this applies, like I said, for musical instruments. It's interesting. I have not played the piano or my, guitar or musical instruments as much as I did in high school. But there's about 3 different songs that I played so many times over and over and over and over again to perfect the notes and the time and the jumps between keys and different things like that. I played it so many times during those years when, as a young adult, that now I can sit down at the piano, and sometimes I have to close my eyes so that my vision and like the other things around me don't distract me, but my muscles can remember exactly how to play those. My muscle memory remembers. And it's a weird feeling. It really is. It's like a part of your brain, it just like turns on and just does the thing, right? And guys, this applies like for every single one of us. I mean, I'll put this into the perspective that maybe more of, you listeners can associate with, because I know that, many of those listening, whether you're on YouTube or the podcast platform, that you're likely running or starting or maintaining a business or multiple businesses yourself. And one of the most valuable pieces of business ownership or starting a business is your ability to sell, right? Your ability to sell. And I've had a lot of individuals that I've coached with over the years that say, how can I be better at sales? Like, what am I doing wrong? How can I get better at this? Repetition, repetition, right? The repetition is what will allow you to build those neural pathways, those habits, that skill, so that it can become almost muscle memory, right? When you get to that point. In fact, so I did sales for over 10 years before I started my agency. And at the beginning of that, sales is brutal. It is. But I'm super, super grateful for the positions that I held in those sales roles that I had with different companies, because I was almost forced on a daily basis to intentionally build those habits and those neural pathways, right? There was one company that I was with that it was a startup company, and we were really trying to build up the amount of like baseline clients that we had. And we didn't have a super huge team quite yet. And so we were required on the sales team to make between 150 to 200 cold calls every single day. Every single day, doing 150 to 200 cold calls. If you have had any sliver of experience with cold calling, you know how brutal that is, right? Like absolutely brutal. But I am so freaking grateful for that experience, because at the beginning, like the first month, 2 months of doing that, it freaking sucked. In fact, I remember like getting up after 2 hours straight of doing that and like going into the bathroom and crying, because I was like, this is horrible. It's like constant rejection and it's difficult, right? And then like pulling myself together, coming back out and getting back on the phone to be rejected another, however many times. But what happened though, over time, guess how many practice calls or how many practice sessions I had for learning how to take rejection, learning how to work with objections from different clients, learning how to become more consultative with my sales conversation versus pitching with, features and benefits, right? Learning how to guide or thread the conversation and really pull out the true needs of the clients so that I could help them in the best way possible, right? That all happened over years of repetition on just absolutely sucking on cold calls and being really bad at it when I first started out. And then over time, learning what worked and what didn't work. Learning, okay, this way of, frameworking my conversation seems to be really responsive for the person that I'm speaking with. I'm going to continue with this, and then practicing that over and over and over and over and over again. Right? I think that piece of it is what is super important to understand, that number one, you've got to give yourself grace at whatever stage of that process you are in. Whether you are in, the first stage of subconscious incompetence, the second stage of conscious incompetence, the third stage, which you're probably in, of conscious competence, or the final stage of subconscious competence, right? Give yourself grace as you're going through those stages. And more importantly, what I want to, hopefully have you take away from this episode is that if you find yourself spending the majority of your time, or even I'd even say half of your time, consuming more information rather than taking action on the things that you already know you're supposed to be doing, be straightforward with yourself. Give yourself some hard love right now and stop. Write down the things that you know you need to take action on, and do not allow yourself to continue that mental masturbation until those things have been taken action on and you are moving forward with those. Hey, thanks for joining me for another episode of the Marketing Mastermind. If you took away any little golden nuggets or took down a mental note of any pieces that you loved from this episode, it would mean so much to me if you wouldn't mind sharing this with a friend, sharing it on your social media, or if you feel so inclined, rate and review this podcast. That is the best way to show your love and support and to get the podcast out there to more listeners. So I greatly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, and I will see you on the next episode.